From sustainability startups in crisis to some major moves in logistics and AI search, you're listening to This Week in E-commerce. Welcome back to This Week in E-commerce, episode 79. I am joined this week by Alex Ross, the boss. How are you, Alex?
I am well, Mal. How about yourself?
I've been great. It's been a crazy week, as it always is. I was at the Grand Prix on the weekend, so I'm still feel like I'm recovering from 2 days on the track.
Oh, I can imagine. Was that up in Sydney?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Okay,
Yeah.
shows how little I know about the F1. I must be one of the only ones left that's not on the F1 bandwagon.
Yeah, I gotta say, I have never seen Drive to Survive before, but everyone I spoke to, it was jam-packed. There were 135,000 people at the F1, and get this, the best activation there of all the brands who were there was Mecca.
Okay, and what did they do?
They had the Mecca beauty pit stop. So it was a big, gigantic orange building, which women were lined up lines as far as you could see, with women lining up for a bit of a makeover. So it was their beauty pit stop. And I just looked at this and went, wow, this shows how the F1 demographic has changed in the last, since I last watched a race, which is maybe like 20 years ago, where it's now evolved so much. And now the split from what someone told me is almost 55-45, men to women.
Yeah, that's unreal. I like that concept a lot. You think about how can I do my makeup really quickly, particularly when you're at an event and you just need a quick little, refresher. So run through a pit stop and then come out 2 minutes later looking fabulous.
Well, that gives you a good idea for what someone should be doing at a retail fest in a couple of months.
Yes, well, I have seen the beauty blowout bar where they've had people doing hair blowouts while you have a meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
was that at Retail Fest or was that another conference?
Was it Retail Fest? I want to say it was the Shecom girls.
Okay, right.
Women who had that in their stand last year. We'll see if they bring that back.
Yeah, fantastic. I think I missed that one. I remember Emily Hayden had the massage chairs.
Yes.
You go there and get your 10-minute massage. That was great.
They were right next to us, so I definitely popped in for a couple.
Excellent. Very good. And will you be at Retail Fest again this year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's a little bit later in the year from last.
It is. It's in end of May this time.
Yeah.
Which is
hopefully that'll give the beach enough time to recover, and then we come in as that second cyclone.
Yeah, that is right. The Australian retail industry takes over and destroys Gold Coast yet again. And Alex, how have you been since we last caught up on the show?
Yeah, really well. Yep. Just looked super busy as always in this industry. I feel like nobody slowed down over December and January, and then we're just continuing to run the race.
Yep. Excellent. It's shaping out to be quite an interesting year. I think a lot of people keen to invest, and actually do something a little bit different. Is that kind of the vibe you're hearing from the hundreds of conversations you would be having?
Yeah, look, I just think it's more competitive than ever. I don't see that ever changing. So how can we do more with less? How can we make the most of the traffic that we're already getting to site? And exactly what investments can we make that's going to move the needle?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to get straight into the stories because we do have quite a bit to cover off. And the first one is breaking news, which actually happened this morning, which I saw, which is that Designerex have entered voluntary administration. Now, this was pulled from a LinkedIn post, which Kostakoulis, one of the founders of Designerex, along with Kirsten Kaur, posted this morning just to share that Designerex had gone into voluntary administration. Now, for those who don't know, Designerex is a peer-to-peer fashion retail platform, which allowed women or anyone really, to be able to rent their dresses out. So it was a real pioneering sustainable fashion consumption model. So moving away from buying fast fashion to rather buying designer dresses and then being able to make some income out of it. I believe they've been around for about 9 years or so and had been growing pretty steadily since. So this really came as a bit of a shock because I thought things were going quite well over there. But it appears they've had to appoint administrators due to fallout or a dispute with one of their technology providers. Alex, have you ever used Designerex or a similar dress renting service before?
Look, I haven't. Before Designerex, there was the Facebook groups where buy,
Mhm.
stop, and sell, and I definitely rented a few items, made some money as well, depending on what you've bought and what's in demand. But no, I haven't used the Designerex platform personally.
And it's something which has been talked about for quite a little while. Like I was an advisor at Aero, which does a similar model for a number of years, like several years back. And it was a very noble cause to kind of reduce the fast fashion purchases, encouraging people to actually rent better and not contribute so much to the that death spiral of polyester, which we find ourselves caught in. But at the same time, you look at a model like this, where to actually achieve any sort of scale, you need to be huge. We
Hmm.
can see that Rent the Runway in the US also suffering similar problems as well. Not so much similar problems, but their business has really struggled to scale. And you can imagine that Designerex operating in Australia primarily, but also the US, incredibly hard business, particularly with all the logistical overheads which go along with taking a dress, having to get it cleaned, renting it out, and only taking a small clip of whatever that transaction is on the way through.
Exactly. And working out who takes that cost as well, within that process for sure.
Yeah, and it's also part of the challenge as well. I think with sustainability, that I wonder whether as much as people do want to be sustainable, sometimes it's just that little bit harder to actually go out, rent the dress, then you got to get it cleaned, then you got to send it back. When it's just easy just to pop down to the shop and just buy a new one. It's a really hard mindset to get out of, where it's just so easy to consume. Like we honestly, as retailers, we make it so easy to consume that sometimes it's just the more convenient way to go rather than actually having to go down this much more noble but ultimately more difficult route.
Yeah, and dare I say, before COVID, the event culture was huge, and you have an event, you buy a new dress, and then having that slowing down a little bit and being more considered, starting to think about capsule wardrobes, and being more sustainable in your own purchases, regardless of whether you rent them out from there or not. I think it definitely impacts that model.
And it does call into question as well, just like, that balance between, the environmental benefits of it, but then also the operational complexity which comes along with this as well. And there was another brand we were going to talk about, but we're going to park that for today, for this week anyway, where similar challenges of that, there is a lot of operational complexity with trying to run a more sustainable business, as well. You either have lower margins because your input costs tend to be significantly higher, and also the demand isn't quite as easily there because typically you're also more expensive than than just buying the cheaper mass produced option as well. So do you like what's your take in terms of like the future of sustainability in retail? Are we just paying lip service to it, or do you actually think there is a time where this is going to change and consumers en masse are going to suddenly start being more conscious about what we're purchasing?
I hope I didn't talk about this last time. I might have. I was at iMedia last year in New Zealand, and New Zealand Post did this really great study and really great presentation where it's the classic, what do you care about as a shopper? And everybody always votes sustainability as being that number one. And then the second one is price. And the funny that they're so close together, it's anecdotal, but they interviewed this man and he was like, I'll do all of the research, I'll look at their sustainability, but at the end of the day, I'm buying on price. And they don't exist in the same breath, those conversations. So I think it's a bit of lip service.
Yeah, and I think particularly now, cost of living crisis, all the batshit crazy things going on in the US right now, which is reverberating all around the world. I think people are being more conscious than ever. And one thing which I've definitely seen is that in the US, especially, it's like consumer confidence is just like gone overnight. In the space of like 2 weeks, a fairly robust market are now just starting to count their pennies a lot more than what they used to, I
Yeah.
feel. So I think a lot of anyone operating in the US is probably definitely seeing some impacts there from some of the changes happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that sustainability conversation as well is, am I more sustainable buying a dress that's B Corp certified, for example, or just not buying a dress and borrowing from my sister or
Mm,
girlfriend, or potentially going down the Designerex route? But so it's an interesting one.
yeah, but also just wearing it again as well. I'm actually
Well,
amazed by
there's
how many
that.
people buy a dress and only wear it once.
You would have seen me wear that same dress a few times. I've got a few in the
The red
rotation.
one, yeah, a couple of times, yeah.
But I don't know. I'm always jealous of the men in their nice suits, so why not reuse?
Yep, there you go. All right, moving on to a kind of sustainably related, kind of sustainability and US economy adjacent is about Tesla. Now, Tesla have an interesting story right now in that in the last month, they have reported a significant sales decline in Australia. So I think it's roughly around the 23% mark. But at the same time, the listings of used Teslas have gone through the roof. And a lot of secondhand car marketplaces are reporting that there are way more Teslas on the market than ever before, secondhand Teslas. And that gap between a new Tesla, which is going down in price, and the used Teslas, where people are trying to recoup their what they spent on it, is narrowing very, very, very quickly. Why do you think everyone's looking to get rid of their Teslas?
I mean, on TikTok, I'm constantly served videos of Elon Musk and his political stance, and he's got a photo or video of him next to Trump. So there's definitely the political element of it. I think it's interesting, however, that he already had, dare I say, questionable morals and stances on some things. He welcomed I think it was his 13th child in January and then his 14th child this month. So to take a stance now, I personally find that surprising, where if you looked at this 5 years ago, you kind of already knew where he was going or what he believed in.
Yeah, and in particular, I think he's not exactly the greatest dad either. From even though he's got 14 kids, I don't think many of them really like him either. And there was also
Sorry, that probably don't even see him.
yeah, and there was also that really, really strange stunt which you might have seen at the White House the other day, where at the front of the White House there was a fleet of Teslas pulled up, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk did a press conference about how great Teslas were. And you might have seen that Donald Trump went into the Tesla and he looked around and went, "Everything's computer." And it was just this really weird doddering old man moment, just like going, who is this guy? Like, has this guy never set foot in like a modern car in like the last, it was the last thing he was in was like a wind up steam car from like the 1930s. It was just this weird moment, but then also the whole just image as well of this, it was essentially a Tesla ad on the lawn of the White House. And I looked at that and went like, the people who typically go and buy EVs are generally more like liberal leaning, Democrat voting people, people who care about the environment. But then over 70% of Republicans have said they won't buy an EV. Yet they're doing this ad for an EV out the front of the White House, which is it just made no sense. If for anything, it would seem to kind of accelerate the further erosion of the Tesla brand. Yeah, by further magnifying the Elon effect.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to think that he thought this through and his affiliation with Trump and what that would mean to the brand and what Tesla stands for. But we're not seeing that clearer picture at the moment, that's for sure.
And there's like protests as well at Tesla stores in America, as well as some vandalism of Tesla chargers. I think I feel that Elon has misjudged or miscalculated the calculus, in terms of making that decision to go back Donald Trump and the Republican Party, versus continuing to lean towards like the tech left leaning base. And you've just never seen this sort of erosion in market value, where Tesla, once one of the most valuable companies in the world, the Tesla brand being really held up as this example, of innovation, of prestige, of quality. And now people don't even want to talk about it. And you have Tesla owners who are putting stickers over the Tesla saying, "I bought this before Elon." Yeah, before Elon became Elon. and things like that. And even for me, I used to talk about Tesla as an example when I would talk about branding and talk about Tesla as being this great example of a brand who wanted to bring forward this future with less reliance on fossil fuels. And now it's really hard to even talk about that because I don't know what they stand for anymore. They don't innovate. They are far from being, an example of quality with everything which happened with the Cybertruck, and also with this batshit crazy billionaire at the helm of it. It's really hard to get behind a brand like that as well.
Yeah, 100%. My parents have a Tesla. They love it. I'm not talking to their political views, but they love the car. They definitely save money in terms of electricity and that output. but it's not the brand that they bought into originally.
Yeah, but also the EV markets continue to mature as well. I think we're definitely moving past that early adopter phase, and obviously Tesla at the start was that was that innovator, was that early adopter who made the very first electron EV, which was actually kind of cool. Because before that, they had like the Nissan Leaf and other things like that, which were far less cool. Put it this way, I probably wouldn't have bought one. But with Teslas and then Kia having their EVs, I've got two Kia EVs. They really ushered in this whole new era of EVs. But in the meantime, you've got all these brands who are coming in and releasing really cool EVs, and that market's starting to move in that maturity phase. And Tesla, I can't help but feel being left behind by the fact that they haven't been able to innovate, likely because their CEO is living at the White House instead of thinking about how to design a better car.
Yeah. What was his proposition? A train from New York to London or something is his big new project at the White House. So I don't know. I kind of feel like he's just being told to stay busy and find new ways to do that. But I just, to your point about the early adoption and coming into market as that leader, I did have a question about the data around these car sales sites. In that, is this, yes, what we're seeing in terms of the breakdown of the brand, but also is this also contributing to these cars are now 5-10 years old? It is that natural time for these people to sell those cars secondhand. I think the real question is, what are they buying next?
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's one where, particularly in car land, like once you find a brand which you like, you will typically buy that same make again. Yeah, I know for me, like I've had 4 Kias, so I clearly am a big, actually no, I lie. I've had 5 Kias, so I'm clearly a Kia fanboy. I don't know whether that gives me more or less street cred, but yeah, that is a very interesting point about what they go on to buy. So I think if there's any surveys around that, I'd be really curious to find out all these people who are selling their Teslas, is it because they just want to buy the next Model Y, which I believe is coming out soon, or are they switching to another car?
Or are they buying there's a new entry from those the Chinese brands as well.
BYD?
BYD, a lot cheaper as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to say though, if Elon if his next big mission, and he's been saying this for a while, is to go to Mars, then do you know what? Good luck to him. I will back him all the way to go to Mars and to never come back. And I also bet that Jaguar are really, really happy that all the attention's on Tesla right now.
100%.
All right, now Alex, one story which you shared with me today, which I had never seen before, was that Australia Post, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Justin Irvine from the Aggregate Co, in terms of what they were doing and how the growth they saw over the last quarter. They have now acquired a 25% stake in a return startup called Shiperoo, which is an Australian startup. So they've taken a fairly significant stake, 25%, and they've cited this as being like a perfect alignment with offering perfect fulfillment for their customers, and by looking to really solve that last mile delivery problem, particularly around returns, which is still a major problem when it comes to retail. On average, retailers experience about 17% return rate, which is extraordinarily high. And when you consider that a lot of retailers offer free returns as well, that's a big hit on the wallet and your margins, to be able to cover that cost of that free return. So now they're looking that they're going to be investing into Shiperoo, and be focusing on primarily improving same day urban delivery solutions. So potentially also offering same day delivery as well through their through their network, which is kind of cool. So what do you think about this with Australia Post?
Yeah, look, I liked this story. I thought it was interesting just because I hear about, and maybe that's where I'm in the market, but about return software and taking friction off site at that really first touch point for customers. I don't hear too much about the fulfillment side of things. So knowing that that's where the investment is going is exciting, because we're going to start to back, or we're going to have tech to back what we're putting online and making that seem like it's the easiest thing in the world. It does raise questions about sustainability again. We're telling shoppers again, super easy to return. So will we see 17% grow, or we see that decline?
That's a really, really good point, because I think if we make it easier, then are people just going to return more? I think ultimately we need to stop offering free returns. For one, that is just an absolute killer, which then opens up the opportunity for other startups to try to reduce the return rate. I know that a lot of the AI virtual try-on startups can hopefully address some of that issue. But that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that, whether making it more frictionless would actually increase the rate of returns, because we're just making it even easier.
Yeah. I imagine it'd be really difficult to engineer this, but offering free returns for a new shopper or a shopper in their first 3 to 5 purchases makes a lot more sense than starting to offer those to those lifetime customers who do know their size. And if they are returning, there's probably something else going into it.
Yeah, I think one of the big opportunities as well is that with omnichannel, that if you do have bricks and mortar as well, maybe you need to pay to return online back to the warehouse, but if you return it in store, it's free. So I think there's also some brand businesses who are looking at a similar model as well. But I think ultimately this is, from a retail perspective, something which Australia Post has to be able to offer, given how dominant Amazon is gradually becoming in this space. We've talked about it many times before, that they just have that whole logistics, whether it be returns, fulfillment, they have that down pat. No one does that better than them. And for Australia, for other retailers, D2C retailers, to be able to compete with Amazon, particularly from that customer experience, customer fulfillment point of view, is that Australia Post does need to be able to offer more of these options to be able to continue to modernize what their tech stack looks like, so that we can hopefully try to level that playing field a little bit when competing against the Amazons of the world, or even the Temus or the Sheins.
Yeah, 100%. And even, I see a lot of brands relying on not Uber Eats, but Uber delivery for that quick same day delivery. And there are a few other platforms out there as well. So trying to keep that share together and make sure that they're the leaders in this space.
Have you used the Uber delivery before?
Nothing's offered in Adelaide, is it now?
JB Hi-Fi.
Oh, JB Hi-Fi. I mean,
all the time.
could drive 2 kilometers down to the Nightland Homemaker Centre and go to JB. But I think that the stuff that you need, that quick 2-hour delivery, it's not available where I am. I have had to Uber Eats nail polish to my house once before a wedding. I think I paid $35 for a very cheap, terrible bottle of nail polish, but I had my hair in curlers and there was no way I was getting out of the house. So that was a Uber Eats kind of situation.
I think more and more, though, it's like we are looking for those time hacks. At the end of the day, the one thing which people value over all else, and if your value proposition is around saving people time, you will most likely win, right? Because that's the thing which people value more than anything else. And if you look at the Uber Eats example, I think the Uber delivery is genius, because sometimes I can be in the middle of a call, or I've got somewhere and I've realized, I've left my AirPods, but I need to go to a meeting. I can make that order, have it online, order it online, and it's with me within 40 minutes. And I can just continue on my day, rather than have to take that time out to go 2 kilometers down the road to the Homemaker Center to buy the AirPods and then come back and use it. I could just get it straight away. Maybe it cost me $10, $20, but it's that valuing your time. Like, how much is your time worth?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to another acquisition, which is now in a space which you're very familiar with, which is around AI search. So it appears that Shopify very quietly have acquired an AI search company, Vantage Discovery. Now, Vantage Discovery, which was created by some ex-Pinterest engineers, is one of the pioneers in the AI-powered visual and semantic search technology space. And it's undisclosed, but I think the estimate is around $80 to $100 million was how much the deal was worth. So a key focus of this is to retain that AI engineering team and to continue to build out the visual search capabilities within Shopify. And from what we understand as well with this deal, that it's initially going to be integrated within the native Shopify search and discovery app. So really exciting things to see that, how far the search space has developed over the last several years. Shopify, no strangers to acquisitions before. And look, let's face it, some of the acquisitions have not worked out well. A couple of years later, let's see whether they're still there or not. So that's the pessimistic hat. But the other hat side is that this has continued to show that we're looking to actually provide a more robust shopping experience, and that the whole idea about AI search is almost becoming table stakes, in the e-commerce game. That if you're not looking at AI powered search, you are going to be left behind as far as like your on-site experience goes.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say table stakes as well.
Yeah.
So I think like, look, I'm talking to so many brands. We're talking to so many brands at the moment that have tried Shopify's current search and discovery. And we know it's really struggling outside of those really small SKU mum and pop type shops. So at the moment, search results aren't relevant, merchandising's clunky, and results aren't personalized. And that's the next iteration of search as well, right? I'm talking to one fashion brand that comes to mind at the moment who can't keep up with their out of stock or low size curve availability since launching Shopify's current search and discovery. They've seen conversions tank. So from what we are seeing, native just isn't cutting it, not with that style of customer who wants more control and wants to scale conversions and AOV even further. So like you said, it makes sense for them to get smarter search and acquire advantage discovery. It should be table stakes for native platforms to do more of the basics right now. But we also know search is very hard to get right. I've seen some other players trying into the search space and they're really struggling right now to get it right. It's harming the ability of traffic to convert on site. And in today's economy, it's so key to maximize the potential of all traffic coming to site versus leaving that money on the table.
Yeah, because I think it goes back to what I was saying before about time as well, that when people go to a website and they are searching for something specifically, they want to find that thing. And if they can't find it within like 2 or 3 queries, they're likely just to go somewhere else and they'll get frustrated by the experience and leave. So you want to be able to make sure that, you've got search, which is semantic, which is contextual, which does understand what the user is looking for and being able to surface the right results for that.
Yeah, 100%. Shoppers have higher and higher expectations as well. We've come from sites that have amazing search and then jumping onto others that don't, and you'll just bounce. And I also like that conversation around loyalty as well and ease of use. So if I can find what I'm looking for super quickly on your website, it's personalized to me, then I'm more likely to come back. Regardless of whether you've got a loyalty program, I get points for signing off or whatever. It's about the actual experience and taking that time out of their day.
And one interesting thing about Vantage in particular, which I found, was that they offer multimodal search as well, where it's not just based on the search query, the text the text string, but also looking at image, video. You can actually upload different media to it as well. So similar to like what you would do with ChatGPT or even Google image search, you can upload something as well like that and effectively ask it, is there anything which looks like this? And that's a kind of a cool development, which I don't think I've seen before in anything.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I'd be interested to see the results and how much of a difference that makes. I think at the moment where shoppers are at is image search is amazing on Google, and then it's up to you to make sure that you've got optimized product feeds, that you're on Google Shopping, that you're on Google Free Listing, so then that can all play in together. We know product discoverability doesn't start on the website, it starts well before. So seeing how that plays out will be really interesting.
Yeah, and obviously the space for those who don't know, Alex is the business development manager. I can't actually remember what your title is.
Well, I like to say, senior business development.
Senior business development manager.
Yeah. We'll just go BDM for sure. That sometimes gets some eyeballs from people that aren't in the industry, which I always find funny. But yes, it's search frame. So very focused on both on-site product discoverability, but off-site now with our recent acquisition of Intelligent Reach as well.
Yep, and then also the merger with Clearview as well, so to form Athos Commerce. Like I keep forgetting the name.
Yes, yep, I should start using that as well. It's going to take a little bit to get used to. No, Athos Commerce, super exciting. So with the acquisition of Clearview, just meaning that we've got double the resources really. So that product map's looking really exciting. There's a lot of investment going into the platform. I will say as well, great tech is only as good as the people that use it. So we know having a really strong customer success team to help customers get the most out of their tech is super important. Whereas Shopify's criteria for what do they call them? MSMs keeps on raising. So it'll be interesting to see how that like product adoption goes of pieces like product search and semantic search.
And that's a really good point as well around tech, that I think a lot of merchants with their tech stacks probably aren't really maximizing it as well as they should. And they're typically looking for quick fixes of like, oh, how do I do this better? So then they move to something else without realizing that, are you actually maximizing what you currently have? And I see quite a lot of that. I know that with some of my brands who I work with who are in SearchBring, it's like, we're barely scratching the surface of what's possible in there. And I know you tell us this all the time. So
Well, it's tough because there's a lot there, and it can definitely be overwhelming. I think just starting with the basics. There are a lot of people that'll be like, "Oh, what have we got to do?" And I'll ask, "What are your top search terms?" And they don't know. How are they converting and being able to make sure that you are starting with where are you driving the most traffic to, and then optimizing and going further from there.
yeah, fantastic. All right, Alex. Before we wrap up, is there anything which you'd like to share with the with our listeners? Anything which is going on?
We've spoken about Retail Fest. We've got to make sure that everybody will be there. I may or may not have some tickets available, so reach out if you are desperate for those. We also have an event on the, I want to say the Wednesday night, could be the Thursday night. Watch out for LinkedIn. But yeah, that's probably the main call out.
Yeah, is that the annual drinks at the? I can't remember what that bar is.
Oh, I think we're moving bars again. But yes, the annual drinks, where the bar tab just always blows out.
Fantastic. And who are you going to be partnering with on that event?
That's also a very good question, Mel. We'll need to check LinkedIn. I know that I'm forgetting their name right now. Instant is one of the partners. I believe Lexa as well. So we'll see. It's always a bit of a crew that jumps on board.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to partaking in that bar tab in a couple of months. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. That's all we have time for. In the meantime, keep selling, keep innovating, and keep growing. And we will catch you next week on This Week in E-commerce.